Welcome, everyone, to All the Way Down, a special episode where I'm back.
Yeah, that's right. Knox is back.
And it's
I'm
episode
still
30.
here.
Yeah.
Episode 30, that's right.
Episode 30.
So you had some, what was it? It was or wait, okay. So last episode it was your birthday, right?
Yeah, it was my birthday, and I think I was only in for about, 15, probably not so sober minutes. And then I think I dipped out about just to go to bed right after that.
Yeah, I saw you were playing Sea of Thieves or something.
Or maybe I might have gone to do that. I did some drunken activity, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
God, man, Sea of Thieves has been, wow, that is a flower that just keeps on blooming for me.
Oh yeah, you're still rocking Sea of Thieves and still really liking it, huh?
Yeah, it's man, there's so much. It's like an MMO in terms of how much content there is, but I actually like it. So there's you know how like an MMO is structured, how it will traditionally just go from being, oh cool, look at this nice little pretty area here, I like this, I'm gonna go explore over there, okay, let me do 10 fetch quests and then go to the next area. This isn't like that. I mean, this is based on a system entirely that I said last time when I talked about the game, it's all cosmetics. So the entire game is all about skill and having fun and doing whatever the hell you want in a sandbox PvP kind of game, but the PvP becomes much more apparent the better and sooner you get good at it. And I've been doing something which I guess a lot of YouTubers have been doing, which is solo slooping, which just means playing the game in hardcore mode, essentially. You're just soloing a ship, and you're soloing the smallest ship, the smallest, most manageable ship anyway. And yeah, it's something that teaches you a real hard lesson real quick in terms of resource management, time management. Man, there's so much to micromanage on one ship that it gets addicting to try and speedrun sounding like an actual full crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really dig it, man. It's something that the more you do it with PvP, the better you get, and you eventually learn that all the treasure and loot you can gather in the game is ultimately meaningless if you aren't good at PvP, because that just means you gathered it all for someone to go turn it in for you and sell everything for you. So it's a cool dynamic to really get used to. I first started playing the game with friends that kind of just approach it from the PvE aspect. They love doing the public events, the public quests. They love doing that sort of thing. And fair enough, there's lots of great lore, and they've added a lot of good content in the new seasons to explore. And actually, when you're doing Tall Tales, which are lore-centric quests that distinctly, you can tell when a ship is on a map doing a tall tale rather than just doing normal adventure, let's put it that way. And it's generally agreed upon to just leave those people alone, so you can enjoy that content PvE. But man, the game is actually just a PvP game that a lot of people happen to go and not the most fullest of or active servers, and they get a lot of PvE in, and then they get ganked by one Reaper and then go, fuck, I hate Reapers, I hate those guys, I'm just going to run away and I'm not going to fight and all that. But oh my god, once you learn and put yourself through the hardcore mode, it's there's so much that's there's so many angles and dynamics through which you can approach a situation, starting at from when your GPU can even render it in from the draw distance. You can start making judgments about a ship if you can see that far. You pull out your little telescope, your scene glass, and you go, oh shit, they have the X sales or whatever that was only released in this live event that Sea of Thieves did 5 years ago or something, and you had to PvP this many people or whatever to get it or something, So you can tell immediately from afar whether or not someone's got experience once you know what the sales and items are, and you can see what flag they're flying, and that kind of tells you what kind of message they're sending out to everybody. You can analyze the way ships sail and see what kind of patterns seem aggressive, and that's just there's a whole level of naval combat that's on top of all the resource management that's fun to micromanage all one person. Of course, it really sucks when you're by yourself and you die, because if you die, you have a chance of losing everything, and you can't do anything for like a good, like, what feels like a minute, which ultimately feels like an eternity in game time, because you're sitting there, you can't just talk to your voice chat buddies. You can't be like, oh shit, repair the cannonball holes, or go get hammer into them now. They're downstairs repairing. Don't let them do that. You can't talk to anyone. You got to let them just have their way with your ship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to balance.
It sounds that PvP kind of stuff sounds really cool and a lot more in depth than I really knew that the game was.
Gets your heart racing.
As far as the PvE stuff goes, I mean, so what do you do when you want to go do a thing?
So, all right.
And I mean like very explicitly gameplay wise.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. Like there's a world event that I want to say it's called Flameheart. It's like it's a minion of one of like the I'm not good up on my lore yet, but it's a PvE boss that, he has a lot of health. He runs around on the island in what's an area is called like the Devil's Roar, and it's like volcanic. So like he activates the volcanism of the island. There's like lava rains down on you while you're trying to kill him. He's got different phases. He's a traditional PvE boss, he kind of acts like that. It's like first person perspective, first person shooter game, it's like Destiny, but like cartoony 3D cell shaded graphics.
Mm-hmm. So you sail there and you get on the island. Do you have to find him?
Yeah, well, he finds you because that's my next point. The reason you know to sail there is because world events kind of happen in a meteorological sense, in that you look on the horizon of where you're sailing. You can look on the map and maybe see a couple things and tell you where some quests are and shit, but like mostly you can look up at the sky and go, hey, there's a big ominous green-eyed fucking glowing skull in the sky. I think there's probably something we should go investigate over there. So they have like they have a system of putting things in the sky. Like there'll be a couple battles with a ghost fleet in which you have to engage in naval combat against PvE ships. And you got to take a whole bunch of ghost ships. It's like 3 or 4 cannonball shots to each one, and you take them down, and then boss ships spawn, and that's a different world event, and you'll see that marked up in a storm cloud that vaguely represents the mast of a ship sailing right over the top of a crest with lightning behind it. It's pretty cool.
Okay. So generally, like when you are playing with your friends, or I guess even on your own, like generally what is the flow? Like do you set out to do something that's PvE and then maybe you run into someone else along the way?
Well, that's the fun, right? So it's entirely up to like you start off the game usually drunkenly in a tavern, waking up with an empty tankard of grog that you can then go to the innkeeper and be like, refill please, and then just get drunk right there in a tavern. And you start off that way in an outpost. So there are outposts all throughout the map that are like, essentially, if you want to think of them as like PvP towns or cities. They're where you're going to go get all your vendors, your merchants, all your, you don't turn quests in there, well, unless you don't turn quests in, you turn the result of quests in, aka loot from the quests, and then you sell it for gold and rep and etc. But you start there, and you can spawn at any point in the map of that server, and then you go, what do I want to do? I don't know. Either way, the best thing to do is start gathering resources from the barrels there. Better yet, if you can get a storage crate and just start storing it all and not have to go to your ship and empty your inventory every time, because you have a carry limit of each kind of item. You can only carry 5 wood. Wood's used for ship repair. You can only carry 10 cannonballs, but you can carry 5 of each different kind of throwable, which is a glass fire bomb, which is like, Greek fire in a glass. Then what's called a blunder bomb, which is just gunpowder and like, gigantic bird shot, I guess, in a glass jar. So it's a shotgun blast in a jar with an AoE percussive effect that pushes people back. And then, there's all this stuff too, like food. You can only carry 5 of a normal kind of food item. And that's the only way you can heal in the game. So you got to balance, okay, well, I'm going to go to this island. I'm going to go there with no food because I need to bring food back, to my ship in order to continue this fight with this dickhead in that ship over there. You know what I mean? So it's there's like lots of snap moments where you're balancing resources as just and some fights are just a matter of mathematics. Do they have the wood to repair? Do they have the players to repair the damage at the rate at which your aim is good enough to cause, or are you just going to keep missing all your shots? Like, there's a lot that can go on. So, and you asked a question, how do you decide what the hell do you want to do? Well, you can go PvE. If you see an event over in the sky over there, you can do something over there, or you can just start in and get spawn killed by some guy who had just turned in all his loot right there and goes, oh, hey, I'm going to kill you and ruin you and you're going to have a bad day because of me. And then you go, okay, well, that's fine. I'm going to spawn here and then go back over here. And now all of a sudden I got a grudge match with this one player, and now I'm chasing them for miles for 20 minutes because they know that if you have the wind directly perpendicular to your sail, the sloop is the fastest ship in the game if you're sailing against the wind, so you can be chasing them, and then they can be going, oh, I'm gonna get these guys from stop chasing me. I'm gonna sail this way where there's no islands safely, and then jump off my boat with a powder keg and try to blow them up floating up near their water line. It all depends on the moment. It's like if I want to, like if I was going to stream it, which I kind of want to, I just don't have the hardware to yet. I would love to do stuff where I tried streaming it a couple times, and in the times that I could stream it in potato mode, I had to only do PvE because PvP was just couldn't render and encode at the same time. But like I would do PvE and then have fun that way. But ultimately, PvP is where it's at for me because that's where the fun content is, in my opinion. If I'm going to live stream it, it's a lot of slow gameplay if you're PvE and just kind of hanging out with your buddies and trying to do that. So, yeah.
So, all right. So if it's very just like in the moment on what you're doing right now, then what's the big goal of the game besides just have fun, of course, but like what's the actual thing that is progress?
That's what is hard to find at first, and that's what kind of opened my eyes when my friend got really tilted with the game, because we would just go PvE and do all this to try and feel a sense of progression, like, holy shit, we're unlocking our emissary flag value by getting more and more loot. But now we're running more and more of a risk, because the more loot you run on a ship, the more you can lose if someone comes by and ganks you, takes it all. So the sense of progression, in my opinion, does not come from all the loots and the quests that you do, because you do unlock deeper quests with the actual quests that you do without dying, and there's more content to do that way. But like the real sense of progression to me comes in being able to PvP well and defend your shit, and like there's a lot of time that you spend. I'm past 200 hours in on this game now at this point. And I would say I'm just now getting to the point where I can sail and kind of vaguely be confident on the coin flip of if another player comes along and decides to screw over my day, if I can defend myself. Like, usually you're a sitting duck. So
definitely, like, progression comes from getting better at the game, and that's always good. But I'm asking, like, okay, so you're talking about there's quests, all right? So there's quests in the game, right?
Yeah.
What does a character say to you, or what's the setup?
Well, the quest is anything you'd normally expect from a traditional MMO type, except the quest types vary depending on the kind of faction that you choose to go with as your emissary during that playtime. There are a couple factions in the game, essentially. What you're doing is rep farming from them to get level 50 in their reputation. And once you get level 50 in 3 or more of the main factions of the game, you get what's called Pirate Legend. And that opens the door to you using or going with the next like hidden emissary, which is it's like Athena's Fortune or Athena's Navy. I can't remember. I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm aiming for anyway, is actually getting Pirate Legend to see what kind of fortune awaits with Athena, because the Athena quests apparently are the ones where they start really, really unlocking the amount of loot you can get, the amount of money and all. And ultimately, what you're asking here is, what do you get out of all this? Essentially, it's just money. It's money and reputation, and of course, there's the in-game currency which you can buy, and then spend that on specialty items like special cosmetics, etc. But the whole game is cosmetics. There's no items to unlock anything. Like, no items have any stats. There's nothing like that. It's all just, I like this item because it looks pretty, and I have fun killing people this way. Or you get the sweaty people that go, I like this sword because this sword blocks the fewest pixels on my screen, and therefore I have a wider FOV, and therefore I can see more of what I'm doing. And while I kind of laugh at that argument, it's totally valid about like cannons. Because with cannons, there's a wide variety of models that you can look at, but you're forced to look at each one from the same camera perspective. So if you have like a wide-lipped cannon, or just a cannon with like a lot of shit attached to it, like cosmetically, that shit all just gets in your way. And in a naval combat, where you're doing a lot of long-range, like trigonometry, problems in your head, and where this is going to land if I aim this all the way up like a mortar shot as opposed to a cannon, you need to see as much as you can. And you really, even with the stock cannons, which have probably the best visibility in the game, even with the stock cannons, there's still a lot of cannon in your way of seeing where the ship is that you want to be aiming for on an X and Y axis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Like, man, there was I used to play a shitload of Destiny, and at one point, for some reason, I kind of noticed how much space your gun takes up on the screen, and it didn't bug me. For hundreds of hours, it didn't bother me. And then when I noticed it, all of it just drove me nuts after that. Just like, man, there's like a good third of my screen I can't see.
Nice.
It's
kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I remember it might have been Doom 3 that I played on the OG Xbox, and I want to say it gave you options to have like the classic put the gun in the middle of the screen kind of thing.
Yeah.
And at that point, Doom 3 was my first Doom game, and I was like, what the fuck? That looks terrible. Who would do this? And then I played the original Doom, and I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. Because it really wasn't that intrusive back then.
Yeah, I think I want to say even Doom 2016 lets you do the middle gun thing, just if you want it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, the funny thing about Doom though, the original, is that in original Doom you don't have a crosshair, so you actually kind of rely on the placement of the gun a little bit to know where you're aiming.
Yeah, well, so like for Doom is so like you can look and that's where your bullet will land, right? It's so like 0 point accurate to where you can just imagine a crosshair, and wherever that crosshair is going to go, unless you have like the plasma rifle out, where that's like a projectile kind of weapon. Everything else is like instant hit scan, right? So it's just look in the middle and you're good. But like with Doom 2016, or not 2016, but I guess by extension, but like Doom 3 and onward, it's like, man, I don't understand. Like, I know it's a fun little mode, but who plays like that seriously? I don't think anyone does.
Oh, yeah, right. But that's what I'm saying, is in the original game, you don't have a crosshair. So you actually, at least me, you actually do kind of use the placement of the gun to aim. But yeah.
You're more pro at it than I am, so I'll trust you, because I don't.
Well, the thing that messes you up about it is that the crazy amount of sway on the gun while you're moving kind of then messes that up a little bit.
I can see that.
Yeah,
you can turn that off too, can't you?
I think in source ports you can, not in the original. But yeah, that is something that I've seen as like a source port mod, is you can like reduce the amount of sway, or you can make it so that like when you fire, it centers the gun. Because in the normal game, if you are moving and the gun sways to the right and then you shoot, it'll like stick in the firing animation in that offset position, and it's kind of weird. But yeah.
Well, does that bother you, like gun shake or anything like that? What about like camera like effects when
it
you're
never
firing?
Yeah, it never bothered me in Doom.
Neither.
But yeah, in some other games maybe. I've never I've never had a game where I really noticed it and didn't like it though, I think.
Oh, I
Well,
have.
I was just gonna say, actually, come to think of it, I tried to play System Shock. I
Oh.
don't remember if System Shock 2 did it, but in System Shock 1, that game even simulates like a slow down speed up of like steps, you know? When you move forward in that game, there's like a head bob, and there's also like your strides are faster than your steps or
Oh,
something, and I
dude.
hated it.
Really? Wait, okay,
Yeah.
so System Shock 2, when did this come out?
System Shock 1,
Or
I
1, I'm
think,
sorry.
is the one that does it. It's old.
Okay, good. How old? What are we talking?
I
Still,
mean,
are we talking like early 2000s, mid 2000s?
I think earlier. I mean, System Shock 1 is a game that does not even have like traditional WASD movement, really. It's like it's one of those games where like to turn your character, you have to actually like click and drag on the screen.
Oh god. I
Yeah.
hate that. Oh.
Yeah. And
So
like
like Warcraft 1,
so like you
if
do
I remember that
have,
right.
I believe you do have like WASD movement, but your aiming is like you're just aiming a cursor on the screen, and you can click and drag to turn. They did make an enhanced edition though that makes it more doomy on the controls. But to get it to work, you then have to turn it on and off, you know? You have to, there's like a hotkey to flip you into like Doom controls, and then you hit a hotkey that goes back into like cursor controls, you know?
Huh.
Yeah. System Shock, man, I played it because like System Shock 2 is really highly regarded. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people who would tell you that System Shock 2 is like one of the best games ever.
I might have
So,
said System Shock 2 as like a slip, because that's probably the only way I know of the name System
yeah.
Shock.
Yeah, it's one of the exactly. It's so big that when you say the words System Shock, the number 2 just naturally
Just
comes out
comes out.
after. Totally. So I tried to play System Shock 1, and I don't know. Some things about it were really, really cool, and I'm sure if I played it when it was new, it would be really cool. But it was very weird to play. It's hard to explain. It was a game where like every action was just a little bit more of a pain in the ass than it needed to be, you know? From like reloading your guns to switching guns to using items to reading audio logs to like interacting with things in the environment. Like every single little action that you take in the game just had like an extra step added to it, you know? That's just kind of annoying, you know? But I could deal with it, right? For a while, I could deal with it. But then when I got to like the 4th floor of the game, that's just like, okay, here's another floor. I was just like, I don't know if I want to just like do it again, you know? Explore the floor and what are the enemies? Okay, what's the puzzle on this floor to get the elevator to work again? It was fun a couple of times, but it kind of wore off for me.
Well, going back to the motion blur, like, well, not motion blur, but just like camera motion, I guess I would say, from that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love it, but I've found an instance where it's actually a hindrance in Sea of Thieves. Actually, they added an option in the graphics settings to turn off camera shake, and holy crap, does that make firing off your cannon just so much better. Because the camera shake would just essentially reset your aim. I mean, it was actually basically like real recoil. And while it was fine, I didn't have a problem with it. Man, did that game get better when I turned it off. Because it was like, oh, you can just eliminate recoil as a factor.
Yeah.
That was pretty nice.
Yeah. I've seen a couple games where you can turn screen shake off, and I always have to think about it, because it's like my thought with screen shake is always like, I would like this off, but I feel like they want me to experience it. Yeah.
Exactly. and that's funny that you say that, because we were talking about the walking just a second ago. You felt like you felt differences in stride. That to me sounds like it would piss me off. And if I was at the board meeting at fucking, I don't know, EA, THQ, whatever, DICE, I don't know anymore. But like if I had that and someone came to me and said, "Hey, what if we made walking more annoying?"
Yeah.
Like, no, the other guy's idea is getting chosen at the board meeting for me. But like, if you were to present it to me, how it was presented to I want to say probably like a 15, 16-year-old Knox, you would have given the consumer a controller with good force feedback. That's important in this. And you would have made it so you could feel the haptics in each of your character's steps when taking those strides. And I will say the first time I experienced this was in a game called Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. Not just Battlefield 2. That's a very important distinction. This is like the kind of like, let's remake this however we can PC experience on the Xbox. So I experienced this on Xbox Live. This is a totally different game from normal Battlefield 2. Not even like a DLC or anything like that. It's going to be just something where it's like I feel like a totally different physics engine, because honestly, if you were to imagine, you know how like gravity is visualized by like a sphere on like a net, and you can like see the gravity field like distort? It felt like I was that sphere moving in time, and I could feel the floor of the map around me just folding inward, like I was falling into the world, but it was just a constant state of running. And it felt really good because of all the feedback the game could give me via the controller and like audio. Like you could hear your kit in your bag shake. But it's not. That's like that's how a human would walk. I don't know what you're describing. You said like you had different like stride lengths, or
well, so what it felt like is that as you walk, your character like sped up and slowed down a little bit with every step. You know what I mean? Like if you think about,
are you just seeing the camera? Like, do you see just like speed differences in the camera, and you're not getting anything? That's terrible. Yeah, who would want that?
And I don't remember if it was System Shock 1 or 2, because 1 had really weird movement in general, where like apparently it's impossible to be perfectly still in that game. Like you're always sliding just like a tiny bit and stuff. It was real wonky. And then System Shock 2. So System Shock 2 was a big advancement from the first one. I definitely liked it more, but I kind of ended up running into the same problem with it. Well, it's one of those things. I feel like I complain about this all the time, and people are probably sick of hearing about it, but it's like I tried to play System Shock 2, right? And the game starts out telling you to do a certain thing on a certain floor, okay? They're like, get to this floor. And you're like, all right. So you go to the elevator, but the elevator doesn't work. But you can fix it by going to this place. But you go to that place, and you can't get there due to this reason. So you end up climbing into this thing and going to fix this other thing, so that then you can come around and fix the thing you were supposed to fix. But okay, wait a second, the elevator still doesn't work because this other thing isn't working. So you go yada, yada, yada. You do a bunch of shit. And then you come back, and now the elevator works, but it doesn't go all the way up to the floor that you need. So you got to get off on this other floor, start doing stuff, yada, yada. And so it's like, yeah, a lot of different things are happening, but now I'm 8 hours into this game, and there has been zero plot progression. You know what I mean? And it drives me nuts when games do that. And so, yeah, it was just like, this... So there was one plot point that happened in the game that was really cool, I'll tell you. And anyone who's played System Shock 2 knows what I'm talking about, all right? I got to the part, and it was cool. But then it was just the same thing again, where it was like, okay, they told me to do one other thing, and now I'm like 2 or 3 floors into that, and I'm just, again, it was like at one point I got to a new floor, and I'm just like, I just don't want to explore this floor. I don't care anymore. Even though like the game was pretty cool, I don't know. It was extremely, extremely clunky though.
So it sounds like it's a game where you're having the issue of the game throwing you enough like challenge to interact with without giving you any reason to. So it's like it's giving you all the no plot progressions is the chief frustration here. What about a game that I have not yet played because I haven't been able to run it, but I kind of want to. But I heard I was listening to Linus Tech Tips talk about this game earlier, and it seems like it's got the opposite problem. What about a game that's throwing the whole fucking shebang at you all at once, and mechanically you aren't able to interact with it as fast as you could? I'm talking about a game called Escape from Tarkov. I don't know if you've played that. Have you played that?
Mm-mm.
So I haven't played it either, but it seems like a really cool thing to try. It essentially is like a hyper realistic drop you into not like a PUBG thing, but not unlike PUBG, I guess. But drop you into an environment that's like, it's essentially like hyper realistic survival sim. Guns work exactly how they would work in real life. You know, you don't reload after like firing 7 shots of a 13 or 14 round magazine. You don't just carry over the shots when you reload. You lose that ammunition, and I think there's even more stuff about that. But he brought up a point that I thought was interesting. He said the inventory management. So apparently it's kind of like you know how Resident Evil's inventory management has just like that briefcase system, and you just kind of have like a game of Tetris that you almost play.
Oh yeah, RE4 specifically.
Yeah, with like the layout. So it's kind of like that. But he was like, I haven't seen this, so I can't confirm for myself. But it was like you have to like rotate it. You can't just like drop it in, like drag and drop it, and it'll snap into place. You have to like, no, it's got to go this way. Okay, no, this way. Okay. So he was talking about how I was just fumbling with the technology, I guess, like the technical aspect of how the game is programmed, rather than just there being no reason to play it, versus plot. Which do you think of those problems as more frustrating?
I don't know. I think I kind of lost you somewhere.
Sorry, I was rambling a little bit.
Okay.
All the game all at once, but you don't know how to deal with it, or no fucking game at all, and you're just doing shit endlessly that you can do with no reason to do it.
So this is a lot to unpack, because all the shit all at once is something I was very recently complaining about with Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it's like you go into the first battle of that game, your first battle, and it's like, hey, there's 2 different modes of attack. You can either hold square or you can mash square, so those are 2 different things. But when you do that, you get ATB, and you can use that ATB to either do abilities, cast spells, or do, ATB is something totally different in this game. It's a bar that fills up while you hit guys, right?
Yeah.
And when that bar fills up, you can either do an ability, you can do a spell, or you can use an item. Any one of those 3 things, and so which one are you going to do? I don't know. But also, there's this other thing, there's limit breaks, right, too. And if you get hit too much or whatever, then you can do a limit break. Oh, but also, you can dodge roll, and you can block. And also, that's all just the first mode. There's also another mode that you can go into called Punisher mode, and that's where like your attacks are kind of different, and you can parry now, and you move slowly, and it's just like, this is so much shit for this one guy that I have to fight at the start of this game. It's like, can we please introduce these concepts to me a little bit slower?
Well, do you think it's different for people who've played Final Fantasy before, or is this just kind of like it doesn't even matter? As a video game, this is too much.
As someone who has not played like Final Fantasy 15 or like really anything after 10, I would say that the feeling of 7 Remake has like nothing to do with Final Fantasy, Okay. It's basically just a game, right? Yeah. And yeah. Oh, I didn't even mention the stagger system, right? That like also enemies are getting pressured, and when they're pressured, then you use a certain ability, and that staggers them. And when they're staggered, it's so much. But okay. So anyway, though, what I did want to defend myself real quick. I can hear the System Shock crowd yelling at me, right? So I wanted to say there's another game that I really like that has the problem of there's no plot points in the game, and that's Half-Life. Remember Half-Life? I mean, in that game, it's like, shit's fucked, get to the surface, and that's the whole game, But I think the difference there for me is that Half-Life does first of all, the gameplay is so much tighter. System Shock 2 has like the most it's got like the clunkiest combat I've ever seen, and like silly animations and stuff where it's like when you shoot a guy, you know, and they're like coming at you with this like really slow, weird animation, you know, that's really strangely slow, right? And you shoot them, and it takes them like if you kill a guy, it takes them like 7 seconds to fall down. You know, they're just like and
Like
just
the 70s horror
slowly fall
movies.
down, and it's ridiculous, you know. And like so, you know, you give them the same. Imagine like you're melee combating a guy, you know, and that kind of thing is going on. So like the whole thing is just like so slow and clunky, you know. But Half-Life is like bing bang boom, it's super tight on everything, and it's got like really good shooting and really good platforming, and it's got a puzzle here and there, and the level design is constantly changing, where it's like, hey, first you're doing the thing like in the offices, and but now you're up in the ceiling, and you're actually like in kinds of places that you recognize, like, hey, we're in the vents of the office and that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But then you're jumping over conveyor belts and all that kind of stuff, and now there's crushers, and
Even better if you play Black Mesa.
and sometimes you fight humans, and sometimes you fight aliens, you know, and like you know, it's like Half-Life does such a good job constantly like having everything feel really tight, and also all the level design feeling really fresh all the time. And you know, I really like what they do with it, with like the plot that's very slow. You know, where you know, you're running into people and talking to them quite a bit, and then like when you see the sky for the first time, it's like such a big deal, you know, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know, that's all. But
You do see the sky
yeah.
pretty late in that game, don't you?
I mean, it's probably like halfway through that you see the sky for the first time. Maybe not even. I don't know. Well, oh no, it's definitely not even halfway now that I think about it. Because you see the sky, right? But then you end up having to like go back underground and do more
Yeah.
stuff, and then you come back, and then there's like the whole fucking army part of it, and then there's a whole part where you go to the other planet, or you go to the other dimension and stuff.
Other
You know.
dimension, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. Actually, sorry to get. I don't want to go off on a Half-Life tangent too much, but it's such a good game. Was Zen? Is that technically another dimension, or is it just like? Was that explained? Is it another planet? Well, it's not a planet, right? It's like in space, but
Yeah, I've always thought of it as just another dimension, but I don't really know what that means.
well, I thought of it. I mean, well, okay. So without going too much into theoretical physics, I mean, I guess you can. Dimension, yeah. Okay, let's gloss over that. I think of it as at least the story. Well, even going back a little bit further, you said it was a story without plot points. I would disagree. I think it's just one of those games that definitely has like an apparent plot. It's just one that is so in the background. Like the game treats the plot as like a, you know, if it's a porno. It's like you expect it to be there, but it doesn't matter for, like, you know, over the gameplay, and they make that super apparent by just making everything. While the game is a little bit linear, it's like, man, it's just explore through here, do what you got to do, because we're not going to tell you shit. And it's great.
And it is also one of those games where like there is a big story going on that you're not necessarily always directly interacting with. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of plot going on that isn't you shooting dudes,
and
but
you
it's
don't really
happening
understand
around.
it. Yeah, you don't really understand it till later in the game anyway. And like it's all like you don't really. Yeah, man. I guess I really didn't think about it, but you don't put everything together, you know, until after you beat the game, probably, and go, "What the fuck was that boss?" I mean, that was a weird boss. That was a boss that reminds me of like there's this one of the weirdest, most like I guess controversial Darkstalkers stages, which is a fighting game Capcom made, but like it's like this. It's called like man, something about something of baby or something like that. Heart of mind of baby, where like you're like in the, like this. Yeah. Man, you're looking at like Earth or something. I'm saying this from memory. It's probably making it or making up half of it, but it's like you're seeing like Earth from space, but you're like in the brain of a fetus, and inside the fetus, it's like the brain is just like shining rainbow colors, and and like there's like the baby is just like in the fetal position in like this other brain, like it's inside of another head, and there's just like little sensor bits. I don't know what you call them.
Brain.
Like, well, not like
the
another
mother brain, perhaps.
Maybe could be. It's a fucking 2001: A Space Odyssey of a fighting game stage. It's cool looking, but it's also like disturbing a little bit.
Yeah. So the question you were asking a second ago had to do with like, can a game give like too much plot all at once?
Oh, absolutely it can, but
yeah.
Plot wasn't really my question. It was mechanics, not plot.
So
you
sure.
You had it on right on the head there with the Final Fantasy VII point.
Yeah. I don't know. You said another thing earlier that is a game I don't think I've talked about. You said, "What if we made walking annoying?" Have you ever played Death Stranding?
Okay, I know where you're going with this. No, but I've seen enough of it to know that walking is a terrifying proposition.
Dude, it's funny because this game is fucking awesome. I loved it.
Before we get too far from it, Fetus of God was the name. Thank you, Omega Weapon in the chat.
Fetus of God.
Fetus of God is the name of that. And you can look it up on Google and find like an animated GIF file of the stage itself in its full resolution. It's beautiful.
What is Darkstalkers?
Oh, Darkstalkers is the thing that everyone pretends that they know what Morrigan is from. I mean, I know that's what she's from, but Morrigan, everyone knows Morrigan. Not a lot of people, I guess, as many people know what Darkstalkers is.
The only thing I know about Darkstalkers is that it's where Morrigan is from.
So the full game, at least the one that I'm familiar with, is Vampire Savior. That's the name of the title, but then it's like Vampire Savior : Darkstalkers. And then Darkstalkers 3, I believe, is the last major entry in the franchise, but it's like essentially if you were to take the normal 6-button joystick Capcom based Street Fighter style fighting game and make it actually, from what I understand, Darkstalkers is known as one of the very first few anime fighter games. So it's got the high action, high movement, extreme cartoonishly bright and high contrast, high color stages and character designs. So it's intentionally overly flashy and cartoony, and okay, so it's Darkstalkers over here, but it's Vampire Savior in Japan. So it's have different names for marketing purposes and such. But it's imagine Street Fighter, but your characters are they all have this spice of horror to them, like a theme, thematically wise. But it's they all have cartoony, super fun attacks and all sorts of things. It's good stuff.
So it's somewhat horror based. You're telling me
horror
is really the thing that sets it apart.
Yeah, horror and still very much anime.
Okay, sounds pretty neat. But yeah, oh my God, Death Stranding. What do you already know about it? I'm curious.
Well, I have watched every opening trailer too, and watched a little bit of gameplay of, but nowhere near as much gameplay. I've pretty much lost my entire interest ever since the game came out, because I've heard so many mixed things about it. But I'm not judging it because of that. It's just it's made its way lower on my to play list.
Sure.
For me, but it's I've been following it since the game was called PT or Silent Hills. I know it's not the same game.
Enough.
It's not the same game at all. But I've been following the project since then. And I'm very invested in PT because I still have it on my PS4, and I'm hopefully never gonna lose it because there's no way else to get it.
I heard that the PS4 has been super broken, super exploits have been found.
Really?
And it's much, much easier to hack a PS4 and play PT on it now. Download PT off the internet and play it on your PS4. I've heard that that's a thing that is happening, which is very good for game preservation, because PT is one of the all-time examples of why we need game preservation.
Man, PT, it's one of the first examples I can think of why games shouldn't only be released digitally.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it was a teaser. It was never a full game. But, it's still something we don't get because they're never going to print it physically.
Right. Totally. So if you so to give you guys the story about that, so PT was a horror game. It was a teaser for an upcoming Silent Hill reboot, kind of. There was a new Silent Hill game called Silent Hills that was going to have Hideo Kojima involved with it. Kojima, of course, being the mastermind behind Metal Gear Solid.
Now that I think about it, was Kojima ever involved in the Silent Hill franchise?
Not that I know of.
I didn't think he was.
I can't speak authoritatively on that. But Metal Gear Solid was a Konami thing, and so was Silent Hill. So who knows? And also I just don't really know for sure. But as far as I know, Kojima was not previously involved with Silent Hill, so now Konami released PT. It was a teaser that was for a new Silent Hill game that Kojima was working on, as well as Guillermo del Toro, and everyone was like, holy shit, this is incredible, and it's going to be incredible, because if there's one thing that Metal Gear Solid is like really, really well known for, it is always knowing what the player is thinking. You know what I mean? Metal Gear Solid is so good at knowing what the player is thinking at all times. As in, when you call someone on the codec, they know exactly what you're calling about. You know what I mean? And stuff like... Have you not played Metal Gear Solid?
Never played anything except for the demo on a demo disc for PS1, and it was very challenging for the age at which I played it.
Well, holy shit, you have to play Metal Gear Solid. The one thing that really stands out about Metal Gear Solid is that at any time in those games, you can bring up your codec and you can call someone, And it's amazing the way that the game has so much codec dialogue.
When you say codec dialogue, what do you mean?
Like you're playing the game, you hit select, it just brings up your radio and a list of names that you can call that are your support team, And you call someone, and the two characters just have a conversation. And that's what I mean.
Okay.
They just have a conversation over the radio, and then it's over, right? And it's incredible how well the game always knows what you're thinking, Like, let's say you run up to a door and the door won't open, and you call but you didn't even interact with the door, and there's you might open up your codec and call Colonel, and Snake will be like, Colonel, the door won't open, and he'll be like, that's a level 5 door, Snake. Your security card access only allows level 1 doors. Look for a level 1 door. Thanks, Colonel. You know what I mean? And then you're back to, and you're like, how did the game know that's what I wanted to? I just opened and called the Colonel. How did he know? You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's great. And that's like with everything in the game. You equip a weapon and call the, you might call like, well, or you might call like the weapons expert, right? Because the different people have different like specialties, right? So you call the weapons expert, she'll probably tell you about like the latest weapon that you just picked up, and she'll give you some info on it, and you're like, okay, cool, thanks, and all that. But it's got this crazy level of like just always knowing what you're calling about, right? So now take that idea of so of course then the games also use that to subvert your expectations.
Is it like borderline breaking the fourth wall almost? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's one of those games also though that it's very weird the way that like they talk to Snake in terms of game controllers. Like the Colonel just says, press the action button to climb to get on the ladder. You know what I mean? And Snake just acts like that's
just
normal.
knows what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a little bit of fourth wall breaking stuff too, a little bit further, like when you have to insert disc 2, for example. Otacon calls you and tells you, like, Snake, I know it's a bit of a pain, but you're going to have to insert disc 2 now, you know? It's so good.
So I want to address something that just came up in chat, and I don't want to bring it up for the one other person on the planet probably that's like me and hasn't played this yet, but there is a point at which this game does something that I have heard of before, which is it reads the data on your memory card. And that's actually why I asked if this breaks the fourth wall a lot, because I remember the first time I played a game and had this mind-blowing effect. And it wasn't Metal Gear Solid, unfortunately, because I think little childhood Knox would have been way more blown away. But Doki Doki Literature Club. Have you played this?
I have.
Have you beaten it?
Yes.
Good. So you know that there's a great thing that happens when developers make a game that makes you yourself dig into the source files of the video game and manipulate something. And then the game itself chooses what to do based on what files are manipulated in what way. And I thought that was the most badass thing ever. I won't spoil that because play Doki Doki Literature Club. I don't care what you have to say. It's free. You can play it. It's free.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that game for a whole episode because
Really?
I went deep into that game.
Did you like it or hate it?
I loved it.
Dude, I did too. It was so good.
Doki Doki Literature Club, if it weren't for Hollow Knight, that would have been my game of the year.
Really?
Year. Yeah.
It definitely had an effect on me. Man, it's such a stupid little anime girl game, but you get emotionally invested. Or at least I did.
and yeah, the things that game starts to do is so far beyond what I assumed it would do. You know what I mean?
Me too.
The way that everybody talks about the game, you're like, okay, it's gonna get weird, it's gonna get creepy, you know? Okay, right? But it goes way deeper in some very, very smart ways, and it does some things that I've never seen a game do, and it brings up some concepts that I've never seen a game bring up. And you should definitely play it. And maybe we'll talk about it another week where we'll fully spoil it and talk about all that shit.
We should.
So anyway, so back to Metal Gear Solid, though. It's very interesting the way that game breaks the fourth wall, because it doesn't do it in like a silly wink, wink, nudge, nudge way. Like, isn't it funny that we know it's a game? It's not that. It does it in such a weirdly, like, serious and tasteful way that I've never seen, you know? Like, for example, before the memory card reading thing, Psycho Mantis's first thing that he does, if you have a controller that has rumble, he asks you to set your controller down, and then he makes it move with his mind, you know? Which is just, it rumbles the controller so it moves on the table, right? But again, though, he's talking to Snake during the cutscene is the thing. You know, he says... He's like, Snake, put the controller down, you know? And he's like, Snake, I'm reading your mind. You like to play Castlevania, don't you? And stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so it's almost less like it's breaking the fourth wall, and it's almost like it's really pulling the player into the fourth wall. It's pulling the player into the game by making them feel like they are Snake.
How does the game know that you put the controller down?
It doesn't know. It just tells you to, yeah.
Okay.
Or like there's another part where they're like, where like Snake is in torture. He gets captured. They take all his gear away. They're torturing him, and then he's in a jail cell, right? And between the jail cells, if you call Naomi for help, you know, Snake is like, oh, my arm hurts or something, you know? and Naomi says, hey, I'll help. Put the controller up to your arm. And when you do it, it rumbles. And she's like, yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? And he's like, that's a little better, yeah. And it's like, so stuff like that is like...
This is the argument for original hardware.
Yeah, totally. So like you can say that it's breaking the fourth wall, but I almost feel like you could argue that it's the opposite, and it's like really pulling
you in
the
through
player
the fourth wall.
into, yeah.
I
And like
agree.
and you are Snake, you know?
Because it contrasts very sharply with a movie like Deadpool, where it's just throwing it in your face the entire movie that you're speaking to someone who is in the movie, or you are being spoken to by someone who is the active protagonist, but not in a sense of I'm narrating the story. It's a sense of I'm talking to you in the theater right fucking now. Or actually you dickhead on the couch who bought this fucking DVD, 8 months after release, you fucking cheapskate, like that kind of dialogue. It's like totally different from just, hey, you're in an experience and you're in deeper than you think you are right now.
Yeah, it's like, right, because breaking the fourth wall would be speaking to the audience. But what this game does is it speaks to Snake in terms that are going to
translate to you,
relate to the player. Exactly. So anyway, the whole point about talking about Metal Gear Solid is to say the guy that is the big name behind Metal Gear Solid, these games that are known for these wild and wacky stuff that you've never seen before, and subverting player expectations, as well as always knowing what the player is thinking in order to do such subversions, yada yada. What a perfect idea to have that guy work on a horror game,
Yeah, right.
A horror game that gets in your head like that, Perfect idea, right? So everyone's excited about PT, about the new Silent Hill game, and then Konami cancels it, right? And then after Konami cancels it, and then there's a whole hubbub with Metal Gear Solid 5, Kojima leaves Konami completely, so this project is not happening anymore. But then
Kojima leaves Konami.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then Kojima is, taken in by Sony, and they're making this game called Death Stranding, right? And we saw a couple trailers for it. Oh, Norman Reedus is in it, which is funny because he was the guy that was going to be in Silent Hills, right? So that was that was an extra nudge, of hey, it's the Kojima thing. After PT didn't work out, look at Death Stranding. Look how weird it is. Also, Norman Reedus is in it.
Norman Reedus is a really cool person, IRL, from what I understand, and it seems I mean, following his tastes, there's a YouTuber I followed back in my early when I was just doing motovlogs on YouTube, which essentially strap a camera to my helmet and talk to it while I ride. There was a guy who he became one of the biggest, actually the biggest motovlogger on YouTube at that point. He became, after he applied, an extra on the set of Walking Dead. Guy named Do It With Dan, awesome guy, good channel. And he had a Honda VMAX project bobber that he had. It's a V4 engine, really cool. You'd like the way it looks. It would the exhaust system would remind you of Cloud's bike. But either way, he said, we brought our bikes, and that was like a bonus to us getting on the set as an extra. Like we had set stuff that they didn't have to go out and buy. So essentially, they had, he brought his bike. It fit with the theme of the set color-wise, because all they were doing in this episode was creating, we needed extras for a biker gang to come in to make this scene, and then, not going to spoil the show, but they fire a rocket launcher at all the bikes. So, Norman Reedus' bike and his bike are in there, and it blows, the scene, they have all the CGI explosions, and they blow up the bike, yada, yada. And he was talking about, I think he talked about this in the video, but he was like, yeah, Norman Reedus was like, hey, man, that's a really cool bike. Because, apparently he's one guy who just knows his shit. It's not just a normal run-of-the-mill Harley. He's not going to look at it and say, oh, it's a motorcycle. It's like, oh, hey, that's a Honda, damn it, of course I'm going to remember I forget the name right off the top of my head, but the V4 engine. It's not something you normally see, and it's cool, and Norman Reedus is into that, and that's cool.
Well,
I like
Norman Reedus has a show called Ride with Norman Reedus. That's like a motorcycle show, and I actually only know that because of Death Stranding.
I've never seen it, but I imagine there's a couple of video game celebrity people that are motorcycle people. Fucking Keanu Reeves has Arch motorcycles in Cyberpunk.
Okay.
So Arch Motorcycles is his brand. That's literally his brand of motorcycles, and they're boutique, man. They're like $60,000 motorcycles at minimum, I think.
We'll get into Death Stranding eventually, but for now, there is a bike, like more into it as for context here, but like for now I just want to throw out, there is a motorcycle you can get in Death Stranding that is Ride with Norman Reedus branded. And when you're driving it, the main character, played by Norman Reedus in the game, says out loud to himself, "This bike is so fucking cool. It should be on Ride with Norman Reedus." And it's like the fun, like this is he says this while you're playing the game. It's good stuff.
Sounds like a Tony Hawk line.
So Kojima is teasing this game called Death Stranding, right? It's got these really weird trailers where like naked Norman Reedus wakes up on a beach and he finds this like baby and picks it up and is holding the baby, and then there's these big like shadow figures floating above the big ocean that he's standing in front of, and there's a bunch of dead fish on the ground and handprints in the sand and handprints all over Norman Reedus and stuff and all this stuff, right? And it's really weird, right? No one knew anything about what this game was. And then there was one interview with Kojima before the game came out. That was the only thing I knew about it gameplay-wise, which was that he said something about how the first two tools that man invented were the stick and the rope. The rope to keep your valuables held to you, and the stick to protect yourself, or to protect your valuables, or whatever, right? And he said so many games are about sticks, and he wants to make a game about ropes, right? And that was it. And I was like, okay, Kojima, like, I love Metal Gear Solid, so I'm on board, right? I'm on board for the next weird thing he wants to do. So you get Death Stranding, and here it is. It comes out, and what the game is, you may have heard that, like, I don't even really want to talk about, like, the plot and story all that much, at least not at the start. It's very Kojima, though, as in, like, it's very overly complicated and overly dramatic, even though Metal Gear Solid didn't start that way. But anyway, let's talk about the gameplay, because I want to say that Death Stranding is truly like no game I ever played before, where it's very weird, because on one hand it's like every game except it doesn't play at all like any of them. You know what I mean? Kind of. What the purpose of the game is, a lot of the time, is delivering packages. Sometimes the package delivery is a main quest, and it's gonna advance the plot, and you have a very good idea of what you're bringing and why, But other times it's just like, I don't know, I've got this soil that the other guy wants to examine, right? So bring it to him, right? And so you are Norman Reedus, and you load up on these quests that are like, this is the package, and this is where it's going. It's
can
this
I interrupt
big.
you for a second? I'm remembering. All I'm remembering is I've been waiting for so long for this project.
Mm-hmm.
Death Stranding, that is, and I'm just thinking, after all this time, what is this game going to be like after playing PT? Obviously, it's not the same game, but what can I expect? And then all I'm getting from what you're telling me is my reaction being, remember when that episode of Futurama, when Fry finds out that his new job 1,000 years in the future is to deliver packages?
Yeah,
I'm a delivery boy. Woo!
That's episode 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, oh, you deliver things in this game.
Right. The whole episode is that he's from the year 2000, and now that he's in the year 3000, he doesn't want to be a delivery boy anymore.
Yep.
But then he finds out that it's space packages in a spaceship.
But you deliver packages on this little bike that Norman Reedus gets a little product.
Well, you don't have the bike right away.
Oh, okay.
So first it's like you are just Norman Reedus, right? And yeah, it's like you take the quest. So the quest is, the package is this big, it weighs this much, and it's going here. And you're like, yeah, okay, give me another one though, right? I also want to get this package that weighs this much and is this big and is going there, right? And you eventually you're loading up on as much stuff as you can to where it's stacked twice as high as Norman Reedus is tall on his back, right? and you walk, and you leave the city, because the cities are like, they're these weird future underground cities, and you leave the town, and you're on the trail, right? And the first thing you notice is this game is fucking gorgeous. Like the areas that you're in, the grassy fields and the fucking mountains with the snow on them and the rivers running through and stuff. Like, it is amazing looking, right? And you just got to walk to this other place, But for once, this, like, there are so many mechanics to the walking there that is important. Like, for one thing, the game's got this whole mechanic where this is like a post-apocalyptic world where rain has become, they call it time fall, and it's like when water comes into contact with things, it rapidly ages them.
Yeah, so hang on. I want to figure out what's going on here. There's been so much from the outside that I don't understand about this world. So it seems like, is there like another dimension merging, like kind of like with Zen here going on? There's these shadow fucking horror entities that lie in the ground, but you can't see them, but they make footprints, and they'll kill you if you move or something. Like,
it's all like living world, dead world kind of thing.
Yeah, there's like a weird physics theme going on, I guess, here. I don't understand.
It's a big thing about souls of the dead and stuff. Honestly, some of it I don't totally remember.
It's not like spoiler material, is it?
No. At least not as far as I'm explaining. So yeah, the setup to the world is really crazy. Where there's these ghosts, that attack you, and also water. Water rapidly ages what it touches, so it's like, as you have all these packages and you're walking, you have to like consider your balance a lot, like sometimes Norman Reedus will get off balance, and then you gotta like grab onto yourself or whatever, and it's like the one game that I've ever seen where, as you are walking, you actually have to look at where you're fucking going. You know what I mean?
Really?
You're not just looking at the horizon. You're not looking at a number of, you're this many meters away, ticking down. You're not looking at a mini-map,
looking at a waypoint.
Right. You are looking at the ground in front of your feet to make sure that you're not going to trip over something or something. You know what I mean?
And why are you doing that? Can you actually trip in this game?
Yes.
Okay.
Because like you said, what if we made walking annoying?
Yeah, all right.
And that's Death Stranding. It's like a game where you actually have to pay the fuck attention to where you're going so that you don't fall over, because if you fall over, you're going to damage the packages, Knox. You're going to damage the packages.
Is this a delivery boy game? Is that what I'm hearing? Is
you
that the
muted
primary
for
objective?
a second there. What'd you say?
Oh, is this a delivery boy game? Is that what's happening?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm telling you, is that like you pick up these quests that are deliver these packages, and you're off on your way, and the delivery is I'm walking there, right? And God, there's so many mechanics, I don't know where to start with just walking there. First of all, like I said, you got to think about your balance, and you can't move around too weirdly or you'll fall off balance, especially if you have a lot of packages, if you're like at weight capacity, But then also, you're going to come across a little river, sometimes. And it's like, how are we going to get across this river? There's a bunch of ways to do it. You could walk around, maybe, like if there is an around to walk to. You can use a scanner that scans the depth and find the most shallow part to walk through that, You could take a ladder. Now we're getting into tools. You can take a ladder with you, that's going to take up some room and some weight on your package limit, but the ladder you can lay down and then walk across it to get over the river, right? All kinds of stuff like that. And then sometimes you're moving around and there's like there's just like some bad territory, right? As in like really rocky kind of stuff. And in those kinds of places, you might have to kind of crouch down a little bit more as you move, and just be generally more careful. Sometimes there's BTs. Those are the ghosts, right? And now all of a sudden it's a stealth game and you got to stealth through these BTs, right?
Yeah,
and
so
then,
these BTs, what are BTs?
I don't know. They're ghosts. They're ghosts
what
with
does
like
it stand
umbilical
for?
cords. I don't remember what BT stands for.
Okay.
Yeah, they're BTs, but your BB can see them. Okay, by the way, you also have a baby on you the whole time, literal baby.
It's called a BB?
It's a bridge baby, right?
Okay.
All right. So you got your bridge baby, and he's hooked up to a scanner, and that scanner is like what told you how deep the river was a minute ago.
Oh, the
but
baby
now,
is hooked up to the scanner, the little shoulder scanner. I was wondering how that worked. Okay.
But then also the scanner can tell you where the ghosts are, because the bridge baby, you see, he's your bridge to the other side, so that's why he lets you see the ghosts. And there's all this kind of stuff going on, but hang on, there's like way cooler stuff too. All right, so also while you're walking, let's say you're just walking through some grass, or there's a lot of rocks and stuff like that. This game, and maybe I'm not exactly right about this, but I think I am. I think that this game, whenever you get into a new region, this game is like asynchronously online always. It's on. It hooks you up to a server. You can play it single player. You can play it offline, but it hooks you up to a server traditionally, and what you do affects other people's worlds also. Let's say you put that ladder down to walk across that river. That ladder appears in other people's games also, and they can walk across it too. They can even like it. Likes? When you like things on the internet, you can like someone's ladder and it gives them points in their game.
Okay. How is this implemented?
It's
How is this
awesome.
explained? How is this explained?
Hang on. Well, likes are the currency of the world. It gets real weird thematically.
You
we
son
might
of a bitch.
we might get into that, but there's other stuff too. Like if the area is generally grassy and rocky and shitty and bad for walking, but everyone is walking through it anyway. If a lot of people walk through an area, it will actually pad it down and clear the rocks and form a path through that place based on how players are playing. And then it gets into some other stuff too, like let's say a ladder is not cutting it. It's a much bigger like river that you have to get over. It's deeper or that kind of thing.
Can I ask about the path? The path, is that something voluntarily that the player has to enter, or is that just chosen by player behavior, as in this is a hotspot of where all players have been moving through this area recently, therefore we're going to do X?
I'm not positive, but I think it's the latter.
Okay.
Like, I'm not sure that this mechanic even existed. It's just like what I think is happening.
That's badass, man. So like,
yeah.
Here's the thing I think I'm a little bit late to the party on. That game Phantom Abyss I talked about a couple episodes back. It is the first ever asynchronous multiplayer game I think I've ever say that I've ever played. But I was fascinated by it because it's like, I love a game that doesn't require that you play with other players, but I love a game even more that shows you how other players stack up, and not just in a now that you're done, here's the scoreboard kind of way. It's like, hey, other players are actually manipulating this world that you are in, and this may be your only interaction with another player. And that's not even an interaction with another player. That's appreciating what another player has done, whether that not they've chosen to. It's like, it's cool that, like, okay, in what sense would 6-year-old Dash be able to comprehend, hey, this other person who played Mario down the block did this on this level, and now this Koopa doesn't behave that way anymore on your level. Like, what?
Right.
Excuse me?
Totally.
That's a fucking concept right there. And I think that's underrated and underappreciated because, man, it's going to be a side effect of always online games, right? But, like, if a game can be asynchronous, it doesn't have to be online. It can just like connect once 10 years ago, and then you can play with all this data that players, have just readily available for you to access because they played it too. But they played it at a point in life where those people, dude, those players may not even be alive in the real life anymore. Dude, that's the craziest shit. Like, I think the first instance I heard about this, I was it was like a tear-jerky moment, man. It was on that. It was on one of these like tech blogger websites a while back when news websites were things people visited without linking from other websites for like social media. But like it was a website that was talking about a video game. It was a racing game about a player who could see his dad's best lap time as a ghost on the track, and he would. I think it was actually an N64 game, I want to say. And he loaded up that N64 game and he played it, and he would never beat his dad's time because he would never want to see his dad, because his father died in real life.
Right.
So that was like a weird connection he had with him. And man, that's so weird. You can be playing with people who have passed away and you can play with them. They're a ghost in the game. It's a mind fuck. Anyway,
totally. And so I'm doing the thing now where we're not talking about Death Stranding because it's like bringing up everything else. But it's so weird to me hearing you explain this that you haven't played the fucking Souls games yet. Because that's like what popularized it in the modern. I think in like modern day asynchronous multiplayer, the Souls games are kind of what started it with the fucking bloodstains. Like when Demon Souls.
So I've played Dark Souls, but I've heard there's asynchronous things about it, but I don't know about them. What does it do?
Do you remember there being bloodstains in Dark Souls that you could touch?
I really didn't play it for that long.
Okay. So when Demon Souls came out, right, it was this thing where it's like, this game is so hard, it's unbelievable, But this game is so hard. But when you die, your blood stain is visible in other people's games. And so if you see a blood stain, you know that someone has died here recently, and you kind of know to look out, And if you touch the bloodstain, you actually like see their ghost for a second, like do its last 10 seconds of its life or whatever. And so, of course, if you see a lot of bloodstains, then you know like something's really up, But then there's also messages. You can write messages on the ground, and then those appear in other people's games, just at some point, right? And that kind of just reminds me of what you were just talking about, where it's like someone could be not alive anymore, but their message is in the game still.
Well, think about it. Like, think about it from a technology aspect. I would say, oh man, okay, so I am not a history buff. Let me put that out there right now. But I would say 100 years ago, a century ago, we just got the ability to talk to someone over a fucking wire. Excuse me? What? How does that make sense? So, like, now with video games became popular in the very end of the last century, So, like, we're just now getting to this point, now that video games are online, where we can experience playing with people as if we were sitting right next to them, even though they're not alive anymore. And I think that's we can say that, but man, it's a real you don't really understand what a mindfuck is until you're actually playing with someone right next to you. And in this case, this kid's, dad was, racing him. So it's like, it's the first instance, I think, ever, that we've been able to actually experience in a physical, provable, manifestable way, having an experience with someone who's not alive. That's insane. I mean, of course, the difference is time. Time is the factor, and that's the key and the illusion here. But like, it's just fucking wild. I don't think our ape brains are prepared for that.
Yeah, and like the idea of a ghost to race against is like the perfect example also, because there's save files, right, of things. You can find a save file from someone of an RPG or something, right? And wow, you load up their party. Oh my gosh, look at their party.
That's
right?
true. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
But that's not like playing against them, right? That's like such a deeper level of like, because you yeah, that's crazy.
It's a form of intimacy you would never expect to experience, and then when it happens, dude, it's like finding a video from a YouTuber, who's not alive anymore, and like seeing, it's especially like behind the scenes videos. It's like being able to see and experience the perspective of someone who literally can't even be there to tell you about it is just such a bizarre concept that I think we're a lot more alien to than we think we are. Like, I think people our age, you and I think we probably take, probably take for granted just how much information that we use. I mean, kids today probably have so much, with smartphones, but like even us growing up with the internet is so much fucking information and so much experience that it's like how did, it's weird to see from where we're going to go from here. 'Cause it's like, where does this go? There's no pattern from even a century ago that we can start off from here. It's like,
oh man, you got to play Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid 2 gets into some shit about this kind of topic,
Really?
Yeah, that is crazy, because it's like, it's like every year the game gets more relevant. It came out originally. Oh yeah, it came out originally in like what, 2004 or 2006 or something.
Oh, it was a PS2 game, wasn't it?
It's a PS2 game.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 2 is, and yeah, like the end of that game gets into some shit that you're like, holy shit, they are talking about 2020. It's nuts. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, back to Death Stranding. So yeah, there's other stuff you can do also that affects other players' games. Like sometimes you'll be like, I want to build a bridge over this water, right, or something. And like you set up a foundation for it, and then other players can contribute. They see the foundation, and then they can contribute the materials that finishes it, and then yay, there's a bridge that everyone can use now.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. So you're walking along, you're taking the well-beaten path if you want to be safe, You're using things that other people have built. You're putting down things of your own, these different buildings and stuff. Because there's other little things, like you can put down a generator that recharges batteries that power different things in the game and stuff, and all that kind of thing. And then there's also this aspect of like lost packages. So you set out with your packages from this one place that are going to another place, But as you walk, there are a bunch of packages that are just on the ground, that in the story, other porters, other as in other delivery boys have dropped, Some of them are just generated by the game, but some of them are actually packages that another player dropped, and you can pick it up and finish their quest for them now, and you both get points for that, and so that's a thing. So and a lot of the time it's dangerous though, you're on the well-beaten path right now, and this thing is off, over there. Is it worth the time and the effort to, go over there and get it, and that kind of thing. And so eventually you make it to this other place that you were going, and you turn in all the packages. Yay, good job. You get a bunch of points for doing the thing that you did, and the quest is checked off. You did that one, and your level goes up and whatnot. And that's like the very basic gameplay flow. But it gets into some really unique challenges where, first of all, the world is not only gorgeous, but the layout of it is really interesting, where like the path that goes from this place to this place to this place, there's
Which game are we talking about still?
Death Stranding.
I thought we were still talking about Dark Souls for a second.
Oh, no, I'm talking about delivering packages here.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, I thought because you were saying I thought you were saying in Dark Souls there was like quests that you could finish. But you're talking about just purely Death Stranding now. Okay.
Yeah.
So people can do quests or leave items, and you can turn in quests in Death Stranding and then get the reward for that quest.
Yeah, like as you're walking along, you might see a package that another player dropped in their game, and you can pick it up and finish it for them.
I see what you mean. All right.
Yeah. So just the layout of the different places that you go between is generally interesting. Like the world is just really, really visually interesting and really fun to just walk
Is it a
through.
big open world?
Yeah, like it's there's multiple sections, but the middle one especially, yeah, is like really big. And generally quite open, but it's interesting because even though it's very open, you can't necessarily go everywhere right away because of your limited technology and whatnot. For example, there's one like town that's really close to another town, but there's a mountain between them, you know? And at the start of the game, you can't just climb that mountain. There's snow, it's too steep. There's like lots of stuff kind of in the way of you finishing that quest, you know. But at some point, you kind of build this whole road that goes around the mountain the long way. And now it's like, okay, now I've got this road and I've got vehicles unlocked. So now it's like, yeah, just load all the packages up in the truck. Now, suddenly, the game's not walking anymore. You get into the second area. Now you're driving a truck delivering shit.
I've
and
seen
you
the truck, yeah.
and you worked for this truck is the thing. Okay. Oh, I gotta tell you, like, oh, this game is so good. It's like,
Can you lose the truck?
oh yeah.
Okay,
But you
cool.
can you can build another one also too.
Well, yeah, but you said you seem to put some umbrage in I worked for this truck, you know?
Well, this is the thing. Before I even unlocked the truck, the bad guys have trucks. And one time, I went into the bad guys' camp, and the bad guy. So they've got, oh gosh. There's these bad guys, right, that have these encampments, and they guard them, you know. And I went in there with my fucking string and my rubber bullets, and I knocked every motherfucker out in that whole town. And it was tough, right? But I knocked every single person out, and then I got into one of their trucks and drove it over to their warehouse full of building materials, and I loaded their truck up with their building materials and drove it out of there and delivered it all to like places. Oh, it was so awesome.
Dude.
It was just like it was just a thing I decided to do, you know?
Man.
It wasn't like a quest. I just wanted to do it. I wanted those materials because I wanted to build some bridges, you know? And then I used that truck in my deliveries. Then I started loading it up with regular ass deliveries for regular quests and drove those around. It was awesome. And then later you actually like unlock the ability to make trucks, you know, but you got to do the quests for it and stuff.
Dude, you this is I'm going to keep saying this. I think you need to play more PvP centric games specifically because you would be insanely good at them. And that's why dude, you have okay. So as soon as you said that, you reminded me of Sea of Thieves because that is one of the funnest things to do. Like there's mind games you can play in Sea of Thieves, right? So the progression of the game is you start, you get supplies, you go do shit, you get loot for shit, you get more loot if you want, or you just go turn it in, right? So loot's worthless until you turn it in.
Mm-hmm.
All it does is attract people to attack you. So
yeah,
you want loot.
That's similar to Death Stranding. When you have a lot of packages, the bad guys, they want them.
Exactly. So you don't have to fucking kill anyone. You don't have to sink them. You can fucking use voice chat and play mind games and create alliances with people. Go join alliances, finger quotes, and then start sowing discord between those alliances. There's so many things you can do, but one of the things people do is just like, oh fuck, well that ship sank, well I'm gonna go just be a scavenger. I'm gonna take all their treasure, I'm gonna go turn it in for them. They won't get any of the treasure unless they're in an alliance with me, then they'll get a share of it. But either way, I could just go and sneak on a fucking player's ship who's not sunk at all right now, and I could just, you know, they're on an island. They're anchored right now because they're noobs and they have their sails down. So they think that anchoring with their sails down will allow them to escape quickly. But all that means is they're anchored. And when I go to unanchor and I can steal their ship, it's faster because I don't have to put the sails down when I take it. So I could do that, or I could just go fuck them up and take all their treasure, or I could just quietly sneak on their ship while they're questing on the island, slowly load all their treasure, not fire off a gunshot, not fire a cannon, not make a sound, just stealthily take all their treasure, put it on there. If they have a rowboat, put it on the back in the rowboat, detach the rowboat, and just quietly sail off with all their treasure into the night if I wanted to. I could do that, you know? There's so much you can do. But like you see, you get enthusiastic about this, and I'm like, dude, you're too good at video games to not be doing this against other people.
Right. So this is very interesting now that you bring it up. Yeah, that Death Stranding is actually kind of similar to Sea of Thieves in that way, right? Because like, yeah, a lot of the game does become about like protecting your packages from the people who are after them, you know.
And when you said that it was an asynchronous game, I thought about how it compared to Sea of Thieves in that, because when you load in, you could have a better shot at other players who just load in, because you could load in and you could load into an outpost where another player had just turned in all their treasure and scuttled their ship and logged off for the night. And what that means is anything left is left. So if they had a storage crate, even if it's empty, or even more if it's not empty, you have a ship, you have a fucking storage crate, which is like essentially a bag of holding, a bottomless bag of holding for resources for your ship. You could start in, grab that, throw it on your ship, and be at an instant advantage over everyone in your area, because somebody else just left a storage crate while they logged off. You know, when their ship scuttles, the treasure stays. I think in Sea of Thieves, treasure will float on the surface for 5 whole real minutes before it will begin to sink. So you can take other people's shit for as long as it's there. Basically, 5 minutes is a long time in a video game.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot more mechanics though. So
in Death Stranding.
Yeah. So like first you're walking around, you got the packages, and then like I mentioned though, there's combat with these people, right? You have a lot of different like tools you can use against them, you know. First of all, your main weapon really that you always have is the strand. It's just a rope. You can just sneak up behind a guy, choke him out. Or if a guy tries to melee you, you can do a doodad on him.
These are not players, right?
No.
Yeah.
Give him the dipsy doodle, you know, and parry him and then choke him out, you know. And that's, boom, that's just your basic melee weapon with your punching and stuff. You can also, like, throw packages at people. Like, the game's got a system where, oh my god, there's so many. It's funny explaining a Kojima game to somebody because there's always so much detail in them. Like, if you hold the R2 button when you're next to a package, the main character will pick it up with their right hand and they'll just hold it. Most of the time the packages are on your backpack or they're attached to your suit somewhere, but if you hold down R2, he'll just hold it in his right hand. And if you hold down L2, he'll pick up a package in his left hand, and he'll just hold those in his hands as long as you're holding those triggers. And you can still melee guys that way, and he just hits them with the packages. And on top of that, if you throw a punch and then release the trigger while he's throwing the punch, you will throw with a package, like at a guy, you know.
Is it like this is just ragdoll out of your hand, or?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so you can take people out that way. You can also get like a grappling gun, like a sticky gun it's called, where you can pull the packages right off of guys, you know, and take them for yourself. It's got shit where like you later there's like a bola gun, you know, that shoots bolas that tie dudes up, and then you run and you kick them in the head to you know, knock them out. Actually,
well, I hope you're enjoying this this Nox Recruits Dash into Sea of Thieves stream. But I want to let you know that there is an implement, 2 of which are on the front of every ship in Sea of Thieves, which is a harpoon gun. And this is a great thing for. It mostly gets used to most efficiently and quickly get loot onto a ship, because you harpoon each individual piece of loot and you can just pick it right up off the hook. But like, you do it to players too. And when players are just swimming towards you, most likely to try and board you, get on their ladder and kill you, or if they have a keg that can blow you up, it's super disorienting to be harpooned out of the water, because in that game, when you're harpooned, the whole process takes like maybe half a second. You're swimming, you hear a very loud metal arrow go through a hard object, and all of a sudden you're teleported to the boat that just harpooned you. So if you're trying to go there and kill somebody, and all of a sudden you're just caught and just like ripped from wherever the experience you were at was in, and you're on their ship being sliced at by people, it's a valid PvP tactic, so it's fun.
Right. Yeah, the sticky gun. Oh my gosh, there was this one time where like I was driving my truck. I had a truck full of packages, but I was getting kind of low on battery because everything's battery powered. But there was just one more river that I had to get over, but there was no bridge or anything. But I was like, it's just a little river. I'm just gonna drive through it, and just real quick. My truck ran out of batteries right in the middle of the river, and then like I think despawned because it just like I don't know, it despawned, but all of the packages, the truckload of packages in the back of it, all then started floating down the river, and I was like fuck, and so I started running after them, and I tried to get in there to get them, but like I lost my footing, in the river, and I started, oh no, now I'm caught in the river. but then I paddled my way over to the side, and I got out, and the river deltaed off into like a lake, and I'm like, fuck, all these packages are just in this lake now. So I had to then, to the place where I was going to deliver the packages, I had to walk there on foot now, get there, build a sticky gun to then bring back to the lake, and then like harpoon all of my packages. Yeah. Well, I mean, as in like turn in some resources and get a gun,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But then, bring it over to the lake and like fish out all the packages out of the water, and catch them all, and then walk them to the place. But the thing is also, it was a truckload. It was not a man load. So like I had to also, oh right, I had to go back to the place and build a truck and the gun.
This is the FedEx driver's worst day, is what I'm hearing.
To then drive the truck to the lake, get all the packages out, put them in the new truck, and drive that. And it was so fun. Like it was so good.
You had to put them in the new truck because the new truck is dry.
Right.
Did the water affect the actual quality of the packages?
It's fine as long as it's fine as long as you don't fall, basically. Like what the time fall will do is it weakens the casing, so then if you actually like if any actual impact happens to them, it'll do more damage if they've been deteriorated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like only the armor essentially deteriorates over time, but you're fine as long as you don't like trip or something,
Yeah, because to contrast Sea of Thieves, because there's a faction called the Merchant Alliance, which, everyone's a pirate, but if you're a part of the Merchant Alliance, well, then you're a trading ship. And one of the supplies you were recruited to gather is in the more advanced areas of the game. One of the items that you can gather is called it's like a crate of exotic. I know for a fact it's not crate of exotic silks, but it's another fabric that would otherwise be destroyed if it touches water.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, you're playing a game called Sea of Thieves, so it's going to be in the water. So essentially, most of the time you find this loot, it's going to be on land, and it's one of the few pieces of loot that if you carry it to your boat, rather than putting it on a rowboat and then taking the rowboat to the boat, or using the harpoon gun I mentioned just a minute ago, and harpooning it straight to the boat, the item will visibly start to deteriorate. So if it gets wet, you can see the actual things in the crate that you're carrying start like almost melting. Like, fuck. Yeah. And it's like it actually has a level at which when you turn the item in for the quest, you get more and more gold based off of the condition of the item. So,
right.
Yeah, pretty cool thing to draw a parallel there too. Games are coming up with cooler techniques to immerse you in ways that aren't annoying that I appreciate.
Totally. So the worst it's interesting. So the whole other aspect of Death Stranding. Well, so I mentioned that like there's vehicles, right? But then later, now you're in the mountains at some point, and everything is snowy, and now you're having to have like all-terrain purpose, like snowshoes and that kind of stuff. And
let me ask about that. So the design of the vehicles is like, when I saw this truck that I think you're talking about, because I saw some sort of vehicle, it looked like a lunar lander. Why do we have these like lunar lander vehicles looking things?
Explain a lunar lander. What do you mean?
So, okay, in Halo, did you ever notice how it was weird that the Warthog had one arm for every wheel instead of a shared axle?
I've played Vigilante 8 Second Offense, where you drive...
Oh, you haven't played Halo?
No.
Okay. So a Warthog has
but you're
wheels.
Talking about...
But you get what I'm talking about. So like instead of like an axle with leaf springs or springs as suspension, like most cars have or trucks have rather, they had like the wheel was attached to an arm, and the arm would just bend, and that was its method of like having good suspension in a very rocky, rough terrain. So like, and I noticed that the car or the truck in Death Stranding, in the footage I saw, looked like a freaking like alien. Like it looked like a vehicle meant to be ultra reliable in an area where humans won't be there to service it. You know what I mean? It looked like a lunar lander. It had like these big donut tires. It was like had arms for wheels. Am I thinking of a vehicle that maybe you haven't unlocked yet or something? Like I feel like
it's possible it's in the director's cut that I haven't played.
Okay,
or it's possible you're thinking of the motorcycle, because the motorcycle has kind of a weird thing where like the front tire can split into two front tires.
Ooh, maybe that is it.
Or something, and those are kind of on arms, yeah. So you might be thinking of the bike. But anyway, so yeah, later you get into like a snowy, mountainous area, and now it's like the vehicles aren't any good anymore, so now you're back on your feet, and there's other technology that you need to use to kind of help you in those places, and it's just, it's really cool the way that the game keeps changing up the gameplay with the level designs. What's up?
No, I found it. I was thinking of the truck. It's like, it's got the word bridges on it.
Maybe I just don't remember what it looked like.
Well,
Death.
It's also that I don't remember what it looks like, because I'm looking at it now and looking at the pictures, and it actually does look like a traditional 2-axle vehicle rather than actually just having independent arms per wheel.
It does look a little different than I remember, though. So yeah, I know what you're saying.
But I noticed when watching it, it was either how good the game is at presenting to you the articulation of the suspension of a vehicle, or it was that the vehicle just had insanely good articulation in general. But it was very much like a mix of like almost to the complexity of a game like Spin Tires or Mud Runners or Snow Runners for those people who've played that, with like the driving and physics engine of like the Mass Effect games where you're driving the Mako when you're doing the extra planetary exploration. It kind of looks like a mix of those two things, and it looks fun to me.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the vehicular stuff in Death Stranding. You do gotta play along with the game, though. It definitely, if you try to do anything kind of wacky with the vehicles, it is the jankiest feeling part of the game. Especially because of how good the physics are and how much attention to detail there is on walking. When you get to driving, it's a little jankier and weirder, But as long as you play along and you understand the rules that they're giving you, it's fine. But yeah, there's just a lot. You really get into like some of the deliveries optionally. Like there's so many different ways to tackle one delivery, where it might be like,
I'm realizing just how much I structurally hate this truck in this game. I'm looking at all the models of it, and I'm just looking at the design of it. It's like, so if you're looking at a picture of it alongside me, it might help you to visualize. If you look at the very front of the truck, or if you've played this game, if you look at the very front of the truck, there is all this clearance in the world. It looks like there's almost 1.5 or 2 straight feet of clearance between the front tires and the front fender where like the headlights of the truck are. So it like implies that it has all this area for the wheels to rotate up and down with with the geometry of where you're driving. But there's like no actual suspension on the tires. It looks like it's meant
Mm-hmm.
like they would just like flop it around like this on the tiniest little axle. So like, and also that I mean like there's it's cool that they're offset axles. It looks like they have portal axles for people who don't know what that means. It's like the axle is not centered to the wheel hub; it's higher for more wheel lift. But like, it looks like somebody took a car chassis and then put an 8-foot tall truck on top of it, but didn't do anything else.
So there is a lot of like lift and lower on the trucks also, depending on like what you're driving on and that kind of thing. They
like,
kind of
it lowers off the ground, like up and down at command.
yeah.
Oh, cool. That's pretty cool.
So, but yeah, you definitely get into some stuff that's like, oh, I'm gonna load the packages up on my back and then take the zip line over here, and then over there I've got a truck prepared and I'm gonna put them in the truck and then we're gonna drive them down the road. But then the place is kind of off, so then at that point we're like you get into like very complicated ways of how you're gonna do it fast and without damage, and it's all good. But anyway, but yeah, you do gotta kind of get into the story a little bit, and the whole idea of the story is that every once in a while there's a delivery you make that is particularly important, like.
Well, actually, can we start a little bit earlier? Because if you look at all the trailers of Death Stranding, there's so much to unpack. Like, okay, your game trailer is that I just woke up naked on a beach with with a baby and a bunch of dead whales and shit are all around me on the beach.
Yeah.
And now things are being sucked into the sky. I think the what you said earlier a second ago was perfect, because it's like, yeah, you might need to explain a little bit about the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the game definitely wants to throw you into that and have you be like, what the fuck, for a minute. And it's the story is very weird because there is this implication that everything is very well thought out and that everything is very what's the word when it's not accidental? Everything is very deliberate,
Deliberate, yeah.
And but like whenever they explain it to you, it sounds like a bunch of hoo-ha, like whenever you get like an actual exposition dump of what's happening, it's like, all right, I guess, it's all very weird and silly kind of. Basically,
dump?
well, yeah. So basically the game has a lot of themes about like it's this is the kind of thing, by the way, that's very difficult for me to explain if it's been more than like a week since I've played the game, because this kind of stuff goes out of my head a little bit after I play a game. But from what I remember, is there is a lot of it's difficult for me to speak on because I feel like I'd have to play the game again. I don't even remember.
Are we talking lore-wise here? Or?
Theme-wise, like thematically, I'm trying to remember shit about the game. Even like, okay, let me put it
so
to you
far,
this way.
what you told me so far, it sounds like, okay, we've gone from talking about PT, which is a horror game essentially, to you have described Mud Runners with Norman Reedus.
Yeah. Oh, but don't forget the bridge baby though. The bridge baby's with you the whole time.
You have the baby. So you're in a truck and there's great deformation and there's great articulation with your vehicle, and also there's a baby.
Yes.
What else is the story?
So the idea is plot-wise, you are trying to like relink the network. It's like there was this whole network that was like the internet, essentially, and now it's gone.
So you said it was like death is a different dimension? Okay, I'm trying to remember what you said very earlier on. You said like there's like a different dimension, but it's not a dimension. It's like there are ghosts colliding with our world.
Yeah,
right?
we might get into that. I'm going to start explaining it at what I remember, and it might remind me of more stuff. So the idea is that you are you're in the world where something happened and there's a bunch of bullshit now, and the internet's gone, and all of and everyone is kind of
Specifically,
living.
the internet is gone.
Well, it's called something else, but yeah, like the network, right, is gone, and you are trying to walk. You basically are on a adventure from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States, and you are going to each important place along the way and re-linking them onto the network. And some people have to be convinced, you get there and they're like, well, I don't like your network business, but then you kind of convince them, well, you get all these benefits if you're on it, and then you link them up, and that's kind of what's going on, right? And there's a whole thing about like 3D printers. Like that's how everything is made, is with these 3D printers, but like you can only use the printers if they're on the network or whatever.
So how do you reconnect the network in Omaha, Nebraska?
You walk there, first of all. You walk there, and then he's got a necklace that looks like it's got 5 USB flash drives on it. It's what it looks like. And he very dramatically tears it off of his neck and puts it on a thing, and then it goes wow, and then they're on it, and then it's good.
Harry, Utah is back on existence. Welcome back. Sorry about the outage.
So and yeah, as a network engineer, I can tell you that that's exactly how it works. So yeah.
You plug a couple things in. There's a resonance cascade. Witchcraft happens, and you have internet.
So that's like what you're doing, and then the whole time you've got this baby that links you to the side of death. Oh, and you are special for some reason, and your pee is good against the bad guys.
My
also
urine.
your blood and your poop.
Oh.
So your blood is special for some reason, and so they actually take Norman Reedus's blood. You're Norman Reedus, by the way. They actually take Norman Reedus's blood out samples when he sleeps. They take his blood and then they make it into like blood bombs that he can throw like grenades at the ghosts, and his blood clouds kill the ghosts. And also, when he pees and poops, they take samples of that also, and you also get pee and poop grenades.
Norman Reedus.
Yeah, Norman Reedus's pee and poop.
Nobody else's.
It is specifically him, because he is a repatriate, which means also when he dies, he comes back for some reason. I don't know why. I never really understood why that is.
Well, if someone dies, just humor me here. If someone dies and I see them at Applebee's next Tuesday, and it's totally fine, and everyone already knows that guy as not a con artist, he's just a guy that dies and comes back, I may or may not be swayed by some shady street salesman that collects his poop and tells me it may give me everlasting life.
Well, the poop isn't going to help anybody else,
Oh.
but it does deter ghosts. Ghosts
well, that's a good important quality.
Yes, ghosts don't like the poo or the pee. And so you can throw the pee grenades at the ghosts, and they don't like it.
Wait. So can I ask how the pee is contained?
It's I think it's like a grenade, kinda.
Is it a jar? Is it a vial?
It's like a vial.
Oh, dang. I'm so disappointed by that. Have you played Team Fortress 2 a whole lot?
I know all about Girardi. Yeah.
Okay, good. I might have actually talked about it before.
Maybe.
Yeah, Girardi's classic. Anyway, good.
So, your shower water also, when he showers, they collect his shower water.
Man, we've got Belle Delphine marketing in Hideo Kojima's game. Let's go.
Yeah. And you can also throw that at the ghosts, and they kind of don't like that either. But the pee and the poop are much more effective. And the blood actually kills the ghosts.
Okay. So there is a biological reason for these ghosts to not like a substance. The ghosts aren't just like, dude, fuck that guy. Every time we see him, he throws fucking piss and shit at us, dude.
It's his piss and shit that's good. Okay.
Good.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I gotta remember more here. So,
you've given me some pretty gold context already. I think I am prepared to play this game.
Okay. No, it's really good. You should play it. It's also like very chill, for people who like those games that are just like, very relaxing. During the relaxing parts, it's a very relaxing game. And yeah.
Thieves.
As far as like the story goes though, so as you're going through and you're seeing all this stuff, the piss and shit, the ghosts, the bridge babies.
Ooh, wait, I'm sorry. One more interruption. I have a lot of important questions about the piss and shit.
Okay.
So when you are producing the piss and shit grenades, are there animations of Norman Reedus bending over, squatting, anything of the like?
Yes. It's when you go to when you go into like the inn, or like the places that you can sleep. Norman Reedus is sitting on the bed and he looks at the camera. He might even he winks at you sometimes. And you can have him go over to the table where there is sunglasses and hat and cans of Monster Energy, and you can have him put them on and drink the Monster Energy. You can have him go over to the
Monster
mirror.
Energy
Specifically Monster Energy.
Paid product placement. Let's go. Okay, next.
And you can have him go over to the mirror, and look at his face in the mirror and go, and you can have him take a shower or pee or poop.
Well, that's certainly an upgrade from waking up as Norman Reedus and saying hello to a cockroach in a room.
Mm-hmm. It's great. And so, all right. So, yeah. So all this is great. And then there's ghosts and when you get caught by the ghosts, it's really cool. But we won't get into that necessarily. And then there's boss fights, right? There's boss fights where you're fighting like giant ghost whales and stuff, and you're throwing grenades at them,
Yes. What's up with the whales?
There's this whole like sea creature theme to the game where like when you get caught by the ghosts, everything gets like overtaken by water, but it's like tarry water, and it starts like raining fucking crabs and shit. Yeah.
What a
I
day
don't
that
know.
would be, by the way. Man, raining crabs. I've heard of raining frogs, but raining crabs could be a bit more snippy.
I don't really know what the
significance,
what the thematic connection is with the sea life, but that's like a big part of the. There's beaches. Okay, there's this whole thing where
so
everybody has a beach. It's like like your personal afterlife is your beach. Like when you die, you go to your beach or something. And some people are able to go between beaches or go to the beach and back or something. So I think that's the sea creature thing, is that like the beach represents the afterlife. And so, there's sea creatures or something.
I would have thought it would kind of be more along the lines of so I kind of took this when I saw the trailer initially, when I saw all the dead sea creatures in that teaser, kind of long before the game came out. I was thinking like once I saw the scene where all the dead sea creatures just started falling from the sky, I thought about how okay, so all right, humor me, this could be a little abstract. If you look at the ocean floor from the surface down, you're just going to see a landscape and of mostly nothing, and then just, life here or there just swimming about. So if you think about it in terms of that perspective, it looks a little bit more like a wasteland. And so there's been a lot of themes I've seen before, The Simpsons did an episode about this, because of course Simpsons did it, where they just drain the ocean. I think it was a special Mr. Burns ocean where, not ocean, but episode where he was hatching some scheme where he had to drain the ocean to do something. Anyway, you saw the scene of a drained ocean. So what does a drained ocean look like? It looks like a wasteland with a bunch of dead creatures. And so, like, when they, in the trailer, were kind of just, like, juxtaposing that on, hey, this is how life is like on the surface, on land. It's like, it was like a really cool environment change. And I took that to see, I took that like mentally as like they're kind of trying to meld environments here, like you know, fuse worlds. They're worlds are colliding that don't normally interact with each other. So it was a theme that I thought was cool.
Yeah, and I think that is thematically what is kind of happening with the living world and the dead world, you know, kind of colliding in the game. And yeah, the dead world is like it is represented oftentimes by the beach and the sea, the dead sea creatures. And yeah, so I basically, though, as far as the plot goes, what I'm getting at is I really liked all of that stuff. And also, you kind of learn more about the main character's backstory. And then there's this other guy who's played by Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh
that,
yeah.
He really wants your bridge baby for some reason, you know. And there's some stuff with him and his time in the war and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of stuff like that going on, right?
He wasn't ever in PT. Like he was like an addition to the cast. So like I'm curious to see how his character develops.
Yeah, so I like all that stuff. However, there's one aspect of the game I could not stand, which was that the big like thing that you were supposed to be doing about linking all the worlds was that you were following and you were eventually trying to save this lady named Amelie. Like, the game starts out, and it's like Amelie appears to you, and she's like, Norman Reedus, whatever his name is in the game. I'll be waiting for you on the beach, is like what she says to him. And you're supposed to be like really intrigued by this character,
You're
Amelie.
my only hope.
Yeah, and like the whole I hated her character because it's like there's all this great stuff happening with the story and with the themes and all that. And you're getting all this exposition that's like, all right, crazy Kojima, this is great, you know. But everything with Amelie is extremely frustratingly vague and doesn't mean anything the whole time. And this is getting right back to that thing that I always complain about how, oh, there's not enough plot, so I'm getting bored.
Yeah.
Or I don't have enough motivation, so I'm getting bored. And that was the thing specifically with Amelie in Death Stranding, which was that all you ever heard was people extremely vaguely telling you that Amelie is great and you need to go save her and she's super important and everyone loves her, right?
I think this is a classic problem with JRPGs.
And it's like, and like every once in a while there are these cutscenes where she appears, right? And there seems to be a connection between her and Sam. The main character's name is Sam. And like a history between them. He used to like dream that he was on the beach and she was there and stuff or something.
Beach,
but it's like but it's all like super super vague, you know. And every time he's just like. One thing about Norman Reedus in this game is that he speaks like annoyingly gravelly the entire game. Like he sounds like he's
sounds like he's talking like this all the time.
So much. And yeah, he's like, Amelie, like, wow, what are you doing here, huh?
God,
you know?
damn it.
and she's but the whole time she's like, just come for me. I'll be on the beach. You know, and it's like the entire fucking like
that was a great impression.
The entire game, you just don't know anything about who she actually is or what she actually did, and you have no reason to care about her, right? Everything else is great. I just found everything with her to be extremely frustrating.
Do you meet her in the end? Have you beat the game?
Yeah.
Do you meet her in the end? Is she a big plot point?
Yes.
Okay, well then it's kind of resolved then, right? I mean, it's kind of there's games that do that, stories that do that, but one of the first games that comes to my mind that does that a whole bunch is Dot Hack. The Dot Hack series, is supplant that character for a character named Aura, and so Amelie is Aura, I guess in this symbolic text, but the origin is going to be probably much different from Death Stranding's. origin.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
just one of those characters that like you get no information of, but you're constantly reminded of. So it's like, okay, what do I do with this useless information?
right,
So, yeah.
exactly, yeah. And like she, not to spoil it, I'll just say she does like become really important at the end, but not because you understand something. It's not like, "Oh, I get it now how important she is." Instead, you get to her and then they explain to you once again how important she is with a little bit more context, at least not even really though. They're just kind of like, "Okay, she's the most important person ever. Look." And you're like, all right. So I don't know.
Now,
That
this
part.
brings up an interesting parallel that I'd like to draw.
Okay.
This annoys me, but it makes me wonder. I still have fond memories of Dot Hack. I like the story and the characters and such, but I will admit the anime is kind of trash. Regardless. The Last of Us. You find out that your side character... another important distinction. This isn't just some nebulous character that's mentioned all throughout the game. This is a character you're with the entire game. So you grow a relationship with this character. But either way, you don't find out how important she is until the very end. To the story, because it's implied she's important the entire time because she's a human life and she's your companion. Obviously, you protect her. But like the implication of characters like what you're talking about are like, they're the bee's knees. They're the greatest thing. But why? And it's like the game force feeds it to you without ever giving you resolution on that for drive to keep going forward.
Yeah, it tells you and it doesn't show you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, with The Last of Us, if you're talking about Ellie being immune, right, and being able to create a vaccine,
specifically the latter to that, yes.
I mean, I thought that was the implication the entire game. That's why you were bringing her to the Fireflies in the first place. It's because it's like, oh shit, she's immune. We got to bring her to the people who can do something with this.
So I will say, I didn't pick up on that at all the entire time. I thought the Fireflies were interested in us the entire time because we were a surviving colony, and they knew how authoritative and tyrannical the actual like survivor colony that you lived in was.
Oh, maybe you're right. And I just I'm retroactively applying the logic.
I believe you because I am notorious for not picking up on obvious plot points.
But yeah, I guess that's about it with Death Stranding. I mean, I loved the game. I 100%ed it twice. Like I 100%ed it on PS4, and then it came out on PC, and I 100%ed it on PC.
Does it do the Crash Bandicoot thing? Can you get 105%?
I don't. Well, I mean, I 100%ed it by my definition. I don't think there's an actual 100% counter in the game. I'm not sure though.
Man, that's a good metric right there. How I define it. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I say I did everything.
Fuck you. I enjoyed your game. Later.
But yeah, it's awesome. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I mean, it's not a game that I would recommend to anybody because it's very weird and it's very like, it's a game where you got to be ready to deal with a lot of mechanics.
Let me ask this.
Would
you say it's a game that you need to have followed the drama of the development history on to enjoy, or can you just pick it up and enjoy it?
I think you could pick it up and enjoy it. If you do know about the drama, I think that could make it better or worse. It could make it worse in the sense that you may have overhyped the game,
Yes.
But it could make it better just because it's like, there's just some fun stuff in the game that's kind of...
I guess we didn't say it till now, but it's a miracle that even happened. It's a miracle that Death Stranding as a project got picked up by so many backers. Like I want to say like I don't want to shit on the game before ever even touching it, and for those who are listening, please don't construe it as that. But like this game came from a massive disappointment. Like there were no expectations on this game other than, hey, look at these big names working behind it. In my opinion, because when I was following this, it was like, So there's this amazing thing, this amazing precedent. Holy shit, PT is the scariest fucking thing of, I don't know, fucking 2013 or whenever that thing came out. Either way, probably like 2015. Either way, but it's like when it came out, it set a huge precedent, and it's like, well, Death Stranding is totally different. And throughout the entire development phase drama of all of what was going on between Kojima and Konami and what happened, in the ensuing year of him just wandering about the world, just globetrotting and finding, talking with different dev studios to see who would take on his project. Like, eventually Sony having the fucking budget and the wherewithal to take it on was cool. But like following that was another experience. If you were just going into the game itself and experiencing it itself, would you be experiencing a run-of-the-mill, not run-of-the-mill is, maybe that's a little unfair. Would you be experiencing a video game as you know it, or would you be experiencing this crazy thing that everyone says is amazing because it has all these names behind it, and it's got all this fancy technology and development put behind it so it looks pretty? And is it just this weird concept of a game that is kind of strange because it just happened because of all the drama or in all the money? Or is it, an actual, like, can this exist as an idea okay, let me rephrase that. Can this exist as, like, one game developer going, hey, I have this idea and I want to make it a video game, and here it is?
Yeah,
Can
I
it
don't
succeed that way, or is it like fucking a result of all this craziness that went on?
It does feel like a result of everything. I do feel like if it weren't Kojima, then people might be a little harder on it.
Yeah,
because it's weird and
it's
very
weird,
different.
but also man, yeah, because like how do you come up with a game like this? Maybe it's just weird because I've followed the drama, and I'm just trying to think of all the circumstances, all the dominoes that had to fall into place for this game to happen. You have to create a Hideo Kojima for this game to happen, which there are already a library of games that came before this that show you what kind of person Hideo Kojima is and what kind of games he can create before you realize what went into making this game. Like, there's so much to precurse this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. I would recommend it, though. I think you should play it just because I feel like you would have a really good time with the story and being like, oh, it's so weird and silly, but then
I think
also,
I would have a lot of fun with the physics engine alone.
and I also think that you would enjoy, the chill nature of the deliveries, but then also sometimes you're going in the enemy camps and stealing their shit, and it's great. But yeah, so that's my whole thing about Death Stranding, and that's we're probably getting to be time here.
Yeah, well, I wanted to end the episode on a specific thing.
Yeah.
I have not been on the show for one episode, but it's been a bunch of weeks. It's been a while between some of these episodes for those who are just listening from episode to episode. But I in that time I got to accrue a lot of stuff in my Steam recently played, and a bunch of it is not retro. A bunch of it's modern, but that's okay because as we've demonstrated tonight, you can talk about modern games and how they have endless potential for mechanics that just haven't been created before. But either way, I've got a whole bunch of games that I could talk about, but I wanted to specifically draw in a topic, or the attention to a topic that I saw on Twitter today, that I don't know, because I haven't spoken to you about this off stream, but I don't know how you feel about it. But there's some speculation that the new Kirby game that's been announced on Twitter, maybe not a game, but there's a trailer. There's some speculation that something's going to happen for this anniversary for Kirby. There's going to be some NFT shenanigans going alongside it.
With Nintendo?
With Nintendo. And
weird.
Of course, this is just speculation at this moment. But so if you don't know, Kirby got. Let me see if I can find this. There's an announcement of Kirby's just like anniversary kind of thing that was on Twitter, and it was a picture of Kirby as the foreground image, but in the background there is a bunch of pictures of Kirby just doing different poses, and it will say underneath Kirby, like underneath each picture, like 068, like number tag 068, and then like Kirby with sword or something like that, like Kirby attacking Kirby or something like that. So it's like that was like the background image to the foreground of an announcement. So it's like, oh no. Why are there a bunch of pictures of Kirby doing different things behind this? Why did there? Okay, so some additional conspiracy theory context here. The same day, another article just dropped by, what was it, Games Radar? Oh man, I'm gonna fudge the name, but John Linneman of a few different publications on YouTube, but John Linneman tweeted, "No, they're not," in response to a game blog post saying, "Gamers are ready for NFT games, they just don't know it yet."
Oh, yeah.
So there's going to be some NFT drama coming into the gamer space here probably sooner, much more sooner than people are wanting to have to deal with. But I know the general sentiment is, so far, NFTs are a net negative. And that's what most people think so far. I don't know how you feel about it, but we can talk about gaming and NFTs in gaming next time on another episode if you'd like.
Okay, I might have to do some research on what the fuck they are. Cause
we can talk about that too.
I am extremely uneducated on the topic. But
I wouldn't call myself a crypto bro, but I do have positions in crypto. I used to have a lot more before I pulled out last year, but boy, man, we could talk about that later. But crypto, I can educate you on a little bit. But another episode.
All right.
Well, we appreciate you all for tuning in to episode 30 of All the Way Down. I am Invictus Knox. This is Dash Retro. Dash can be found on Twitch and Twitter.
Don't even bring up the Twitter. I just stream on Twitch.
Man, I'm going to encourage Twitter to use it more. I'm going to keep bringing it up every time. I'm Invictus Knox. I'm Invictus Knox everywhere. You can find me. That's Invictus Knox with a V. You can figure out where the V is. If you're here, you might know where that is already. But either way, we appreciate you all tuning in. Thanks for chilling. We'll see y'all next episode.
See ya.
Later, dudes.